Joink. All right, welcome back. I said I'll be right back, so yay, glad I am. One of the big rules in a horror movie, don't ever say, I'll be right back, because you won't. You gotta follow the rules. Sorry, I broke the rules here already. But anyway, welcome to part 3 of this gigantic Scream franchise recap episode here. So, I recapped Screams 1 through 6. Now it's time to get to the new one, part 7. Hopefully my voice holds out here a bit. Just saw it, opening night, and let me show you a quick little slideshow before I get into my thoughts on Scream 7 here. So let's take a quick look at our slideshow. All right, here we are. The first picture here. So this was the opening night fan event at Marcus Cinema. I was invited out to be Ghostface for the night. I was wearing this very costume I'm wearing here. And there were picture opportunities, like fans could come by and get their pictures with me. And then here I am. This was on the ultra screen. And then fans also got like a poster for coming out as well. So that was really cool. And then here's my buddy Sean. He runs the Marcus Cinema there, and he was gracious enough to accommodate throughout this time. He provided me with a couple of these pictures as well, so thank you for that, Sean. And just thank you for being a theater owner in general and just rocking it and, you know, doing what you gotta do with a cellular telephone. Next, here I am stalking one of the standees. Not sure what this movie's going to be, but he's Ghostface's next target. And then here we are. Then I was joined by my buddy Shanzi. If you remember him from the last part, 10 years ago we were Deputy Dewey and Ghostface at a screening at the cinema. Now here we are 10 years later. Same thing. His costume's a little bit different. My costume's a little bit different. Same principle though. Scream has aged well with us. He's one of the biggest Scream fans I know, my buddy Shanzi. And then here's a passerby that came by. It was good seeing you that night, buddy. And then a couple more passerbys that wanted to include me in their Ghostface heart. That was really cute. And then here's the last one that it just melted my cold, dead little heart that this little girl wanted to come over and get a picture with Ghostface, and she wanted to hold Ghostface's knife, and she was totally unfazed by the whole thing and thought it was awesome. Pretty sure she wasn't able to go see Scream that night, but it was just cool to see that Scream just transcends generations. It is now 30 years old, this property. So there's the impact in one picture right there. So, joink, back on camera here. So, went opening night to Scream 7, and the thing with Scream 7 is that it is written and directed by Kevin Williamson, who wrote the original Scream movies. He wrote 1 and 2, had ideas for 3, and then he wrote 4. And this is his first time directing. And I really appreciated his style. It was so well done that it seemed like this was not his first rodeo, like he had done several previous Scream films. I guess when you invent the franchise and when you live with it as long as him, he knew what he wanted, and it showed. The directing was great. The writing was not great, unfortunately, which I never expected. I thought it would be the other way around. I thought all of his attention would be on the script and not so much on the screen. And my biggest criticisms about this movie were the story and the script itself. So maybe I'll get into the criticisms before I get into the good stuff that I really liked. So, and this is the one that everyone's talking about. Everyone hates the killer reveal, and I fully agree. When the killers reveal themselves, like they always do, you're kind of like, huh? Who are these people again? We saw them for a couple of seconds on screen prior to this, and normally they're a character you know. It's the tagline. It's always someone you know. This time, it's not. It's not someone you know or care about. Spoiler alert, there are Should I spoil anything for this? You made it this far, I'm going to spoil stuff. So, spoiler alert, there are 3 killers this time around. There are 3 killers, and each of them had about 0.23 seconds of screen time prior to this. You see them briefly. They don't matter or stick out. You're expecting it's going to be one of the major characters that there's always a red herring, you know, and it's none of those major characters. It's this guy that runs an asylum. He's like, hey, I'm gonna, do my own Ghostface killing spree, and he recruits, this lady who has no connection to Sidney Prescott whatsoever, other than she read Sidney's book, and she felt close to Sidney in reading the book, and she's like, oh, it gave me the strength I needed to, do all this killer stuff. And then I thought, oh, I might as well kill Sidney Prescott as well, she says. And that's her motivation is, I read the book, now I've got to become Ghostface. Like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then there's a third guy that they recruit who's a crazy person from the asylum who has nothing to do with anything. I don't know why he would have any stake in this killing spree, because it can't be a simple thing, planning all this stuff out and going through these steps. And I don't understand why this guy would go through with it. Yes, he's insane, but just none of it made sense. This is the first time in this franchise history that the killer reveal was very disappointing. I didn't like those killers that were revealed. Usually it's like, oh wow, it's shocking and whatever. I didn't predict that it would be them. I don't think a lot of people did. I didn't like that rug pull moment. I'm sure a lot of people didn't. That's probably where the majority of the audience scores and critic scores are coming with the thumbs downs. This has, I think, the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score, but it's still a decent score considering. It's just, that moment was lazy and not good. And then everything after the killer reveal was just tired and eye-rolling, because it's something you've seen 100 times, and it's not something any of us were particularly interested in this time around either. Then there's a struggle with the killers, and then they're taken out, and it was very rinse and repeat, and it was like, give us something different, please. And that part was boring, and that made it seem like this franchise, not that it's overstayed its welcome, but that particular part overstayed its welcome, and I just wanted that part to be over so we could move on to the ending, which hopefully something crazy or cool would happen at the ending, but nothing particularly crazy or cool did. So that's the big thing that people don't like about it. Another thing I didn't like about it is that the characters were not smart. They made a lot of really stupid decisions that they should know better than to make, especially the 7th go around. Like, Sidney makes a lot of stupid decisions that she never would have made in any of the previous ones. Same with the newer characters that were carried over from 5 and 6. They make some really dumb choices, and they were the smartest people in Scream 5 and 6 that know very well what to do, what the rules are, how to stop the killer, and they just fell into all the traps just like any other character with half a brain. And it was kind of insulting to see that, insulting on their behalf and a little bit on the audience behalf, to just not at least have things referenced that they are aware they're making a bad decision. That's what they did really well in 5 and 6. If a character was forced to do something that they knew might end up badly, they'd at least mention it. At least mention that meta stuff. That's what it's all about. But these characters, they were just kind of written poorly. So a little bit more work needed to go into that part of it, just making sure that we're aware that it needs to be a meta moment, and the characters aren't as stupid as they are letting on. That would have been great. That would have moved things along a little bit better. So those are my big complaints, really. I liked a lot of the other stuff. So let's set up the story here. So this takes place in a new town, I believe in Washington, where Sydney has relocated, and she now has a daughter, and she's just trying to protect her daughter the whole time. And then Gale shows up, and the new killings begin again. And it was frustrating to see Sydney be like, hey, daughter, please don't do X, Y, Z. That's dumb. Killer will come for you if you do those things. And then, of course, daughter goes and does X, Y, Z, and then peril ensues. There's a moment, back to the characters being dumb, there's another moment where they made a chain of stupid decisions. The killings were beginning again, get out of town. That was the plan. They go back to their home. They didn't need to do that. Obviously, the killer was going to be there and try to get them. They go back to their home. Of course, the killer shows up and starts chasing them around. They're able to get into a panic room that Sydney had smartly set up a long time ago. They're in this panic room. Okay, good. Should be game over. The panic room is meant to stay safe in. Call the cops. The cops will be there in a couple minutes. Take out Ghostface. That's all you got to do. They're in this panic room, and they decide to try to leave the panic room. And, of course, Ghostface, and they're trapped in the walls, and he's trying to get them. Cool piece. Like, that whole scene, it was tense, and it was cool. It was creative. But a stupid decision led to it, which undercut that whole thing. So I didn't appreciate that. But they make out okay after that. There are other stupid decisions that were made, and there are no cops in this town ever, apparently. And the core people that they know are being targeted by Ghostface are never surrounded by cops. Where are all the cops in this town? Anyway, I'm ranting about the stuff I didn't like. I want to talk about the good stuff. That opening sequence was one of the coolest opening sequences in the franchise history. I'm going to complain a little bit again. It was disjointed from the rest of the movie because it didn't seem to connect to anything. But it was a really cool moment that, again, showed the legacy and the history of this franchise. And they had, like, the stab posters up. So it was the original house that the finale of the original movie took place in, Stu's house. And it's turned into a bed and breakfast now, and it's a bit of a shrine. And, you know, they'll have a fake Ghostface call you and ha ha ha, and, you know, you get to go through the motions and, like, live the movie for a weekend. And it's a guy and his girlfriend doing that very thing. And they just think it's a fake Ghostface calling them, but it turns out to be the real Ghostface, and then he attacks them. And he burns the house to the ground, which was really shocking. I didn't think they'd ever do that, but I was like, wow, like this Ghostface means business. And the whole marketing, the tagline was burn it all down. And so I thought, wow, this is just what his MO is going to be. He's going to be burning down either like the Stab legacy or Sydney's legacy or the other character's legacy. Like, that's got to be what this is. And no, that was not it at all. It was like that one self-contained scene, and then it had nothing to do with anything else. The killer mentions, like, I was in Woodsboro and I burned a house down, but it had nothing to do with anything. And I wish they would have stuck with that theme and carried it through the rest of the movie. If that was the thing, if he was going to burn down Sydney's house, like, that would have kept that consistent theme going. And if that was just the thing, like, oh, you know, the Ghostface, you know, he burns things. Like, do you guys smell smoke? What's the smoke? Oh, there's Ghostface around the corner. Like, that would have been a cool, fun, different little take on it. But, you know, they didn't do that. There was no more burning after that, just that opening scene. All the marketing revolves around the fire and the burn it all down, the mask, the fire. That was awesome. I was hoping that would be a whole thing. And they did it much better in Halloween Kills because it was a similar thing. The marketing was the Michael Myers mask, the fire. Even though he also had an opening scene that dealt with fire, that was a consistent thing that carried through. His mask is all burned up and charred now. And he's damaged from the fire. And it's a whole thing. Like, they could have continued that with Ghostface. At least burn that mask a little bit, give it a little bit of damage. That would have been fun. That would have been different. So, there's that. But yeah, that opening scene was great. And what else about the movie? There were some really cool set pieces, like them being trapped in the wall and Ghostface tapping. That was cool. Another thing you see in the trailer is Sydney is looking at the security cameras and she's talking her daughter through how to stop Ghostface. And they're working together to take down this Ghostface. That was cool. There were a lot of callbacks to things. That was cool. Gale Weathers has one of the greatest introductions in franchise history when she shows up on scene. That was cool. Taking out one of the killers early, that was cool. It was another one of those fun little subversion moments. What else? I don't know. It felt like a classic Scream movie. Was the other thing. It felt like a Scream movie. Some of the others, something was a little off. This one, you could tell it was coming from the original people, Kevin Williamson. So, there were some good things. There were some bad things about it. But overall, great movie. I didn't even get into what it was supposed to be. So it was supposed to carry over from those previous characters, the two sisters, and one of them was supposed to get killed, and it was going to be a whole thing. And it was going to be the one sister becoming Ghostface, and that would have been the end of that little trilogy. But that didn't happen. We don't know if Melissa Barrera is ever going to be able to come back. We don't know if Jenna Ortega is going to come back. There was a lot of controversy with that. Melissa Barrera was fired from Scream 7 because she was making political posts. It rubbed some people in the studio the wrong way, and they got rid of her. And a lot of people got upset. And so there was a bit of a smear campaign with this new Scream 7. People didn't want to see it. People were boycotting Scream 7. It's the largest opening in franchise history. So did it work in its favor or against it? Who knows? All I know is that the numbers are insane. It's made almost $100 million in its opening weekend alone. It's outgrossed Scream 4. I think Scream 8 is on the horizon. I think it's safe to say. As long as Kevin Williamson avoids some of the pratfalls from Scream 7, I don't see why Scream 8 wouldn't just be amazing as well. I'm excited that it's a very real possibility that we could get a Scream 8. Well, we'll probably get one anyway, no matter what. Sooner rather than later. This is a good franchise. Honestly, all 7 of these movies, I enjoy them all. I don't think there's a bad one. There are some weaker ones, but I don't think there's a bad one in this franchise. If you sit down and watch this whole franchise, you're not going to be bored. You're not going to be disappointed. It's fun. It's always fun. It's barely ever boring. There's some frustrating stuff, yeah, but it's a good horror franchise. I feel like there's room for continuing to reinvent the horror genre through this franchise alone. It's a good time all around. So, there you go. I think I've said all I can about the entire Scream series. Hopefully, if number 8 does roll around, I do an episode on it. It'll be much shorter than this. So, thank you for tuning in, my friends. Did I do all the stuff I needed to? Yeah, I talked about everything. Let me tease ahead to next week before I let you go. Next week is going to be a big screen re-release. That's the plan. And here's a clue. Next week will be episode 35, and it'll be the 35th anniversary of this particular thing. That was not planned. That's just how that works out. So that's the idea, and it's a sequel to something I've already covered in the past. That'll be a first for this movie series as well. So thank you for tuning in, my friends. And until next time, stay spooky, my friends.